Hey YouTube, Ed here with Jack of All Trades, and welcome to another video. So it is that unfortunate time of year. It's the deer hunting season's over, and it's time to winterize the cabin and winterize the plumbing lines so they don't freeze over the course of the winter. The temperatures up here drop to 30, 40, even 50 below sometimes. So we need to make sure that the cabin is winterized in such a way that it's not going to freeze the pipes, and I'm not going to have to do a bunch of repairs in the spring. So stay tuned, let me show you how I do that. And welcome back. So yeah, we're going to winterize the cabin today, but before I get into that process, I need to tell you a little bit about my plumbing system. I am running on a sandpoint well, which means I have a lift pump, or a shallow well pump, if you will. I actually bought it from Harbor Freight. It works quite well. I haven't had any problems with it. I've had to replace the pump once since 2009. All of my plumbing lines are basically RV plumbing lines. It's the supply lines and things like that you'd find in an RV or a camper. And I did that for a very specific reason. I did that because if I ever do blow a line, they're easy to replace, they're easy to find, you just use crimp-on connections. And the other thing I did was all of my lines are external to the walls. I didn't bury them in the walls when I built the cabin. And again, I did that for ease in case there ever is a problem, I can easily replace those lines. So let's go ahead and let's start the process of winterizing my pipes. All right, the first thing I got to do before anything gets started with this is I need to drain my hot water heater. You can see here I've got kind of a funky configuration here. Here's my supply line coming into my hot water heater, and here is my hot water line coming out. Don't mind the reds and the whites down here. I actually had to replace this valve at one point in time, and I only had red tubing left, so sue me. At any rate, you can see here's my supply in, here's my supply out. And what I need to do when I built this place is I needed to be able to isolate the hot water heater so I could winterize my pipes. So I put in these three valves. This is a crossover valve. So if I shut off my supply line and I shut off my hot water line and drain my hot water heater, I can open this valve and water will pass through, and it'll actually supply all of the lines throughout the cabin for the winterization process. That's why I did it that way. So if you're building a cabin or something like that and you need to be able to winterize it in the fall of the year when it's time to close it up, you might do some kind of a configuration like this so you can isolate your hot water. The other nice thing about this is if my hot water heater ever dies on me and I need to replace it, all I have to do is shut these valves down. I can unhook everything, replace my hot water heater, and it's back in business. Or if my hot water heater dies and it's going to be a while before I can get it, again, I can just isolate the hot water heater and I can at least have cold water, running cold water. All right, so the first thing we have to do is I have to kill the circuit breaker. You don't ever want to drain your hot water heater without the circuit breaker shut down. I also killed the circuit breaker in the main breaker box as well. Now what I have to do is I have to shut this valve off, shut that valve off, and turn that valve on. So I have now isolated my hot water heater. There's no water going to or from the hot water heater. Okay, now it's time to drain the hot water heater. Every hot water heater, home style hot water heater, has got a drain valve on it, like this one. And you can see I just hooked up a chunk of garden hose, and it actually is going outside the wall of the cabin. This wall back here is the exterior wall of my cabin. So the water, or the drain hose actually goes through the wall, and it just deposits out in the ground and leaches back into the ground. It's good clean water, so there's no problem with that. So now I've got my hot water heater isolated. I've got the breakers shut off. Time to drain it. It's nothing more simple than opening up this valve, and you can hear the water rushing out, and it is now going outside. So now that I've got the lower valve open and the hot water heater is draining, now I need to allow air to get into the hot water heater so I don't build up a vacuum inside here, and it allows the water to drain out faster. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open my safety valve and allow the air to come in through my safety valve. You heard a little bit of air rushing in there. That means it was already building up a vacuum, and I'm just going to stick the knob up. And this actually kind of does two things. It allows me to verify that the valve is not stuck and sticking. And the other thing it does is it allows the air to come on into the hot water heater so that it can drain. Now that the hot water heater is draining, I can go ahead and I can proceed with the rest of the winterization process. All right, we're out here in my pump house, and just to give you a little lay of the land, this pipe right here goes down to my sand point. This is my shutoff valve. These are cobwebs. This is my shutoff valve, which actually will shut off the sand point water supply. This is a garden spigot in line that goes into the pump, and I use this to put a hose into this bucket so that I can prime it and put in my RV antifreeze. Then the line goes down and it goes into the pump, comes out of the pump. I have a shutoff valve here, which allows me to shut off the water supply to the cabin. I have a filter, and then the filter, from the filter, goes to an outside faucet, and then the pipe goes into the cabin. All right, so how do I go about winterizing? Well, it's actually quite simple. So the first thing I have to do is I have to shut off my sand point supply. Once that's done, I can go ahead and I can start up pumping RV antifreeze through the system. Now, I've also removed my paper element on my filter already, because once you do this, that filter is shot. So it's just a good idea to go ahead and get rid of it. Now, I use this Prestone waterline antifreeze. It says it's good to 100 below, and it's a guarantee, I guess. It's a little more expensive than some of the cheaper stuff you can buy. It's never failed me. I know I could go get some cheaper stuff, but I'm a pretty firm believer in something like this. A couple extra dollars per gallon is good insurance for me, so I don't have to come up here in the spring and worry about fixing a whole bunch of stuff. So go ahead and I just take and I open these buckets up, and I dump a whole bunch of it into this bucket here, which holds approximately 3 gallons of antifreeze or water. And so that's what I use to pump into my system. So we're going to go ahead and just fill this bucket up. All right, so I've got 3 gallons of antifreeze in the bucket, and then I'm going to go ahead, and I know from experience over the past few years of doing this, it takes about 5 gallons to completely get the pipes to a point where they are full of antifreeze. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up 2 more gallons and just have them ready, because as the pump is operating, we're going to have to come back out here and refill this. You don't want the pump running dry. It's hard on the pump. So then the next thing I got to do is I got to go ahead and I got to open this valve here, which is going to allow water to come out of the bucket and into the pump. And then I'm going to go outside and I'm just going to run the outdoor faucet until it runs pink. Okay, my outdoor faucet water is running pink. I know that one's good and full of antifreeze. I can see that the antifreeze in the bucket has gone down, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some more. Why did I do the outdoor faucet first? It just gives me verification that the pump is actually pumping. I can hear what's going on when I'm out here and I'm close by. It's just a verification, and I don't want that line to be full of water over the winter time, because then it'll freeze. Okay, and now we're into my kitchen sink. We're going to go ahead and we're going to run the cold water and the hot water until they both run pink. Okay, cold water's running pink. Turn it to hot. And the hot water is now running pink. That means I've got antifreeze running through all the cold water and hot water lines to my kitchen sink. Now I have to go back out to the pump house and I got to refill the bucket. Okay, now we're in my bathroom. Same process. Run the cold water until it runs pink. I have pink. My cold water has got antifreeze in it. Give it a minute or two. Okay, we're good. Run the hot water. Same thing. I got pink. We're good to go. Now we're at the shower. Yes, I know my shower needs to be cleaned. That's a spring thing. That's what I do in the spring. Same process with the shower. Go ahead and run the cold water and the hot water until they both run pink. Okay, I've got pink on the cold water side. And I've got pink on the hot water side. Now I'm going to go out and check the pump bucket, make sure the pump bucket's full. All right, now it's time for the toilet. So I'm just going to basically flush the toilet. And all I'm going to do is let the water run enough so that the line going from my cold water supply to my tank has got antifreeze in it. And then I'm going to shut the valve off. Okay, I've already got pink in my toilet bowl water, so I know that there is antifreeze in that line. I'm just going to go ahead and shut that line off because I do not want to refill the tank. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run the flush knob again to get and I'm going to hold it down to get as much of that water out of the tank as possible. All right, so I know my toilet tank is empty. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to pour an entire gallon of antifreeze down my toilet. I do not want any residual water in the trap of the toilet, so that can freeze over the winter and then I have to buy a new toilet. So I'm going to pour a whole gallon. Now I'm sure that my toilet is not going to freeze over the course of the winter. And likewise with my shower, I'm going to pour an entire gallon of antifreeze down the shower drain. So now I'm ensured that the trap in my shower has got enough antifreeze in it. All right, so now the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull these traps on both my kitchen sink and my bathroom sink. I probably wouldn't have to because they are full of antifreeze, but it's just a little bit of insurance that if it does come down here and freeze and I didn't happen to get enough antifreeze in here, that we're not going to have any problems. So that trap is empty, and now I'm going to go do the same thing in the bathroom. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unplug my well pump. So now my well pump is no longer supplied power. And then I'm going to go outside to the outdoor faucet, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to relieve the pressure on my well pump. Okay, pressure on my pump is down to nothing. I got 0 in there. I got antifreeze running through everything. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close my siphon hose valve. I'm going to go ahead and remove the filter, which should be full of antifreeze, but I take it apart anyway. Just lay that on the ground there. Now I have residual antifreeze left in the bucket. I'm just going to go ahead and dump that down the drain of the shower. And there you have it. That's how I winterize my cabin. Now you might say to yourself, Ed, why did you show me this? I don't have a cabin like yours, or you know, maybe I use an RV or my cabin has completely got different plumbing in it. A lot of the principles and concepts that I used here will revert to an RV or a camper or even your own recreational cabin. And maybe if you're building your own cabin, these will give you some ideas on how you want to lay out your plumbing and things of that effect. So that's the only reason I showed you how to do this and why I do this. Now what I'm assured of is come spring, regardless of how cold it gets this winter, my plumbing pipes aren't going to freeze. I'm not going to have bursts to deal with, and I know everything is going to work just fine. Fun little thing, just FYI, coming in the future, in the spring, I'm going to build a new pump house. This pump house is going on 15 years old. It was a pretty hasty construction. I was running out of year, and it was into September by the time I got the well punched and the pump house built. So like I said, it was a really hasty construction, but it served me well for 15 years, even though I just basically threw it together over the course of a day. So I have no complaints there, but I'm going to build a new, slightly larger, more improved pump house with better insulation. The mice have seemed to found their way into this pump house, and so I want to eliminate that possibility. I'm going to use some better materials, not quite so slipshot and haphazardly put together. So stay tuned for that this spring. If you want to see how I'm going to redo my pump house, I'm going to put in a new pump, and I'm going to redo a lot of the plumbing inside of the pump house. I'm going to put a permanent heater in here, things of that effect. So stay tuned to the Jack of All Trades channel if you want to see that this spring. But anyway, that's the video for this week. I hope it gave you some ideas. I hope it helps you to, give you a little bit of extra thought on how you can winterize your place or your camper. And it really works well for me. In 15 years, I've never had a burst pipe. I've never had a problem. I don't have any trouble with my traps or anything like that. Everything works just fine, and it's no different maintenance than what you do in your own typical home as far as plumbing is concerned. With that, this is Ed from Jack of All Trades. As always, thank you for stopping by. Thank you to all my longtime subscribers. Thank you to all my new subscribers. I really do appreciate that. And we will see you all on the next video.